Welcome to episode 9 of Founders and Funders. This week I have Dan Copsey. Welcome to the show.
Ray, how are you today? Thanks for having me on.
I'm doing very well. Today we're going to go through your story and all the businesses that you've built, but let's start with your upbringing. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up and your childhood influences.
Yeah, so I grew up in Melbourne, in Australia, out in the eastern suburbs. I was very lucky. I had a really good family upbringing. My father was a policeman, my mother was a teacher, and I had two younger brothers. I think we had a fairly normal suburban upbringing. Played footy, played cricket, had a lot of friends in the neighborhood area, which we used to muck around with, which is cool. Which one of them is actually a long-time friend and business partner to this day. So yeah, had a really good upbringing as a child. Went to school in Box Hill. I went to Whitefriars College, which is an all boys private school in Donvale, which is a great school. My mum came from the country, and we spent a lot of time up on the family farm, holidays with my grandparents and whatnot, and all my uncles. Having two brothers, I'm the oldest by a couple of years. James and Nathan are probably a little bit closer in age together, and probably spent a bit more time at school together than I did with them. So there was probably a bit of a gap between us as siblings. So it was just a really good between sort of Box Hill North, Blackburn, and Mitcham. There was probably about 30 or 40 of us in the end that were all a bunch of friends and played sports together and mucking and grew up together and got licenses together. So I studied music at university. And when I finished high school, I moved up to Lismore up in New South Wales and went to university up there and studied music. And when I moved back to Melbourne, I just really didn't want to work as a day-to-day job in music. I didn't want to be a music teacher. I
Yeah,
thought
me
that was
neither.
just I just thought that was a terrible profession. So a friend of mine actually ran a landscaping business, and he's, just needed a laborer, and another friend of mine ran a fencing business and they just needed laborers. I was having grown up spending so much time in the country and on the farm. I was used to using my hands and being outdoors and stuff like that. So it was very natural for me to go into that space. I worked for about 6 months laboring for friends and whatnot. And I thought, I really enjoy this. I like being outdoors, building things and working with tools and the camaraderie that you have in working in crews outdoors and stuff like that. So I decided to do an apprenticeship.
Yeah, nice.
And I did an apprenticeship with a company called Australian Native Landscapes, who were probably the top tier company in Melbourne at the time for commercial landscaping. And we did a lot of work such as Flemington Racecourse, Chatsworth Shopping Centre, and
Well,
sort of those high profile projects, which was awesome fun. Probably is where I came across my first probably professional mentor, a
okay.
gentleman by the name of Scotty Thomas, who was running Australian Native Landscapes at the time. And he had a profound influence on my life in the early days and in the direction it took even after I left A&L and went on to moved through the sort of the senior ranks of landscaping and civil construction into estimating positions and project management. I was always able to tap back onto Scotty's knowledge and ear for advice and whatnot. And we became very good friends, and we are still very good friends and close to this day. Himself and his dad too, Max Thomas, who actually only just recently passed, they were
Mhm.
huge influences on my early professional career. I think it was the first time that I realized that I can make a real career out of something here, and I had talents and the intelligence to be able to do it. And they certainly guided me and stopped me from making some silly mistakes. And there's a lot of, at that age when, you're young, in your early 20s, and you have all of a sudden you're working and you're not bound by school and all the other framework that's in your life as a sort of child growing up, and you have money and a lot of freedom and things like that. And I think a lot of people can go off the rails in those early days if they're not careful and partying and whatnot. And Scotty and his father were probably instrumental in making sure, just guiding me, making sure I didn't waste any talent at that stage, which was great. And I feel really privileged to have known those people in those early days and had that guidance, because I think a lot of people, a lot of talent. I won't say people. I'll say a lot of talent can go off the rails early without guidance and mentorship. So I really appreciate that in my life at that
Yeah,
stage. Yeah.
absolutely. I really value my mentors that I've met along the way in my career. What are some of the lessons you remember from your conversations with him?
I think just keeping a level head was always something that Scotty taught me to really be aware of, and just making sure that you kept a level head, you were professional in the way you turned up on time. you didn't look like the cat had dragged you out of bed and things like that. Just that professional look was always something that I remember being taught in those early days. Like we used to spend an immense amount of time cleaning the utes and the machines and everything like that to make sure that they looked brand new when we came onto site, because that's the way we presented ourselves on site. And just, I think it was a discipline thing that was probably instilled into me in those early days. And I think to this day, it's something that I carry with me. Like I like to keep my cars and my motorbikes and my toys, whatnot, clean these days in my house and things like that. And I think it goes back to those days where the way you turn up to a client is their first impressions, and the second and third and fourth impressions really do matter. So I think that discipline and that professionalism was something that was instilled in me from those early days, which I really valued. And I've tried to pass on to different staff and team members over the years as I've traversed through my career. But I remember that being that discipline. And it's like making sure that if you're working on a Saturday, you're not going out and having a big night partying on the Friday night and turning up. And then we never missed a day of work. I was really proud of that. Like we never missed a day of work. We were always there. And like you get into those points where you think, some people like, oh, they don't like their job and they call in sick, or they'll go out and party on a Friday night and they don't really care if they call in sick on a Saturday morning and let the other team members down and stuff like that. I was never like that. I was just like, I wanted to be there. So you enjoyed the work, you enjoyed who you work with, and you enjoyed turning up and turning up in the way you turned up. So I think that there's a lot of discipline, but there's also a lot of just, I think you probably consider it culture now.
For sure.
Really enjoyed being part of that. And it was such an awesome experience in those really young formative years to have people like that around and be in that sort of environment. And look, the Christmas parties were good fun. We all went and let loose. And I every one of those guys that I worked with in those crews at A&L in the early days, I'm still friends with today and reach out to them and have a chat to them. And we still talk about all those times. The Thomas boys, the Thomas family did a really good job of fostering that culture in those early days. And it showed, and it still shows today in some of where those staff members have gone off and furthered their careers and stuff like that. So yeah, that's probably my key takeaways from those really early days in my professional life.
Yeah. First impressions matter a lot. From your experience working with these great people, what inspired you to start your own business? And tell us a little bit about your first business that you decided to start.
Our first business that we started way back in the day was actually a clothing brand called Level 7. Yeah. And Alex and I decided to start this because we were both interested in the entrepreneurial space. We both were quite entrepreneurial, and it was right at the time, right when Facebook and e-commerce first started, and it was really early days in all that space. So we thought we'd start a clothing brand, a surf brand, which took off really. Like it was huge. We just did hoodies, t-shirts and hats and beanies, but we had celebrities wearing our stuff. We had Brendan Favola wearing our stuff on Dancing with the Stars. We had Justin Bieber wear our hat at one stage. We had a multitude of different like surfing identities wearing our brand and stuff like that. And it was just that early days of that, probably before influencers were even there and e-commerce was being, we had 70, 80,000 fans on our Facebook page at one point. So those early days, and we just built a business to see if we could work together as a team. We were very good friends and family, probably shouldn't do business together in 99.
No.
That's the cases, right? And Alex and I were very good friends. We'd grown up in the neighborhood together, and our families knew each other, and our brothers and sisters knew each other, and all that sort of stuff. So we was like, here, let's have a crack at this. This is something that we can do as a side hustle while we're doing our careers and whatnot. And it worked really well. Like it went amazingly. We had a lot of interest all over Australia. We sold a lot of stuff where it was Australian made. So we really pushed that a little bit. The social media thing and the e-commerce, we're very early days into the clothing, selling all that clothing and stuff online like that. So it was very successful. And then we actually sold the business to a Japanese company, which was fantastic. So our first foray into entrepreneurship was a success. And it was because we wanted to see if we could work together, and B, we just wanted to build a business and have a crack. And then there was obviously trials and tribulations along the way and things like that, but it was like, all right, we can do this. We know what we're doing. We're smart, and learned some huge lessons along the way. And we didn't make a whole lot of money, but it wasn't about making money. It was about, I think it was also more about putting us into that entrepreneurial position, and also being involved in different things. I think I was I'm a big Carlton Football Club supporter, and we were doing some work with Mitch Robinson at the time, who played for Carlton. I remember we did a brand launch at one point for us where we had Chris Judd and Dave Hughes and all these guys turn up and speak and everything like that. So that was really exciting to be part of all of that. Just no one knew who we were. We were just two guys that put this brand together. And then all of a sudden we had all these people at a launch for us and all this kind of stuff. So I think it was a bit of a lifestyle thing as well. So being in mid to late 20s doing that.
Yeah.
So it was cool. But yeah, that was our first foray into business.
Sounds like a great lifestyle. Also sounds super exciting. How do you attribute the success to? How did you get such a big following and make these connections with these other players?
Well, it was all about marketing in earlier days. And ironically, running advertising and marketing agencies now, we didn't realize what we were doing back then is like a day-to-day thing of what we do with all our clients now. We lent into the PR space very early, level 7, and used PR quite heavily. And this is before influencers were a thing. People still had huge followings and on social media, and it was probably more organic at the time than it is now. Like we didn't do any paid advertising back then. No paid advertising. It was all organic. So when you have 80,000 followers on your Facebook page, you didn't pay for a single one of them. There was no ads or anything like that. It was just all organic. And that's probably when the algorithms were a bit freer and less restricted than they are now. So it's quite an interesting time to be in that social media space, doing the online, doing the content and doing the e-commerce thing as well. So we went really heavily into that. We didn't approach any shops. We didn't want to stock retail or anything like that. It was all purely online. And it was just using those influencers, those celebrities, and then just pushing the social media and the content really hard. We discovered things early days where if we went really hard on selling online, like through our content, then we actually saw that the sales drop off. So if you were pushing a sale or a price of a hoodie or something like that, the sales would drop off. But then if we really started pushing personalized content, like the day in the life of a surfer or behind the scenes at level 7 and all these kind of things, the sales picked up. So it was quite an interesting sort of to be looking at the analytics at that time and how it all worked to see the different metrics and how we could push and pull it like that. But it's been cool to be able to use that, what we learned then, just to even relate to some of our clients these days and say, hey, we actually been there. We've run an e-commerce business. We've seen how it's done. And these are the things, the lessons we learned and stuff like that. So there's a lot that we can pass on in our day to day now as well. So, yeah.
Excellent. So you sold the business to a Japanese company. And then what did you do with all your proceeds? What did you do next?
Wasn't a huge amount of proceeds, but it was still an exit out of a business, which you'll take that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So next, this is where we went into sort of, I was working in civil construction at the time and working in the bulk earthworks, civil construction space, working for a big company in Melbourne, working a lot of major projects, doing a lot of carting earthworks, bulk earthworks with trucks and things like that. So Alex and I started investing in that space a little bit. We bought a couple of trucks and started running our own stuff on the side. Then we got involved in a project where we bought a larger transport company.
Okay.
And this is probably the most tumultuous couple of years of our professional careers. It didn't go well. There was a lot of lessons learned. We lost a lot of money, but there was a lot of lessons learned. We had an education in that space where you couldn't pay for that education if you tried today. No university, no school is going to teach you the lessons that we learned there. And I would hope that I wouldn't wish I wouldn't wish any person I met to actually go and experience those lessons themselves, rather that someone like myself can teach you about them and teach you how to avoid them. Probably jumping into the business, into the transaction too fast was one problem. The second problem is the people that we took advice off, the professional advice, wasn't great at the time. Accountants and legals and things like that. Just we didn't get advised properly at the time. And this is probably one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in my career as you go forward is that professional advice that you need to have. You need to have the right people advising you.
Completely agree.
You've got to be so careful about who you engage to help with that. And I've been through 2 sets of accountants in my time. I have an awesome team right now. I've been through multiple lawyers in my time. I have a great set of lawyers right now. It's taken me a long time and a lot of money to realize how valuable that advice is, but we were badly advised at the time, and it is what it is. You can't be naive about that. You can't blame it all on bad advice, because at the end of the day, you're a director of the business, you're involved, you're in
Exactly.
the transaction, so you've got to take it all on responsibility. So a lot lies with us, but yeah. And also we had a business partner in that dealing there too, which I think that was a mistake in the end. Well, it turned out to be a huge mistake. And personalities, I think his problem, he wasn't a bad person. He had the rose petal glasses on going into the transaction and into the deal about owning a big transport business, and probably didn't have a think about too much about the stress and the requirements and the time and the sacrifice that's required to run a business, let alone buy one and get one back up and running and things like that. So it takes a lot, and you've got to be really prepared as an entrepreneur or business owner to have all those things. I don't think any business owner listening to your podcast, Ray, would tell you any different. That every day is roses and lollipops. There's a lot of challenges every day. They're small
Yeah.
and big and whatever else. But sometimes that's why you do it too, because there's the old adage, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, right? And you're either built to do it or you're not. So yeah, so that business partner, he just wasn't built to be in it, and needed to get out and exit, and that exit caused a bigger chain effect and whatnot. And in the end, we lost the other business partner who was with me and stayed. We lost over $1 million
Oh my gosh.
in that transaction.
Yeah.
And probably the biggest toll that transaction took on the backside of it was probably the mental toll as well, because
Yeah.
it bashes you around really badly.
Yes.
And, they talk about, and I'm certainly not taking anything away from a soldier going to somewhere like Iraq or Afghanistan, or a policeman. I sit on the board of PVV at the moment, Police Veterans Victoria, and I see firsthand, what PTSD can do in those work environments. But there's also when you go through an episode like that, where you lose a lot of money, your livelihood affects your relationships and whatnot. There is PTSD from a traumatic event like that as well.
Mm.
So that I didn't recognize that afterwards. And that
Mhm.
probably took me a couple of years to really deal with that and recognize what that was the problem. And once I recognized that and started talking about it to people and professionally and to my wife and friends and whatnot, it became a lot easier. And to turn it around and start looking on it as an experience and a life lesson,
Yeah.
and to learn from it, leverage that that's certainly helped. But again, going back to that thing, you've got to be built to go into that. But even if you are built to go into a situation like that, you can still be affected on the back end if it goes wrong. And that's what happened to us. I think at the end of the day, there'd be things that I did differently at the start, but I don't regret the passage of time and the events that happened at all. I think the massive amount of learning that we had and the resilience that we were able to build from that experience were just, you can't put a price on that. And to be able to then take that out and build that into the businesses that we've got today is just things that other business owners who are just starting out they read about it, but they haven't experienced it. And when you experience it, it's very different to reading about it. And you can really take those lessons and leverage them into your new businesses. And that's the thing too. You've got to really have the gall to get up and go again too. That's another big thing. A lot of people will go through a situation like that, I think, and that would be it for them. They would not want to do business again. And they would think anyone who wanted to get involved in a business again has got rocks in their heads, and maybe who knows?
Well, I think running a business, and I remember even my first business was a house painting business. It gives you the highest highs and the lowest lows. On the best of days, you feel like you're on top of the world, everything's running smoothly. And then the worst of times, your clients are upset with you. There's operational issues. You have to deal with getting a lawyer and getting advice. And I think that's what makes it addictive to stay in it, because that high is pretty awesome. I don't think I've ever experienced anything similar from working for someone else. And I think that's something that draws me back in. And also I totally relate with the accountants and lawyers. I think I've been through 5 accountants, and
Wow.
having lived in
Yeah.
Canada and Australia and Sweden, like I feel like any other relationship, there's probably a point in time they were the right person, but then when you outgrow that relationship, probably didn't cut it off. Do you think?
Exactly. Well, exactly right. No, you've hit the nail on the head there, right? Because that was a problem with one particular set of accountants. I think we just outgrew them. And they didn't recognize that we'd outgrown them, and we
Yeah.
didn't recognize that we'd
Or they
outgrown
didn't
them.
want you to leave them.
Well, that's exactly right. Yeah. I think we could do a whole episode on professional services and stuff like that. And we might have to actually get a really good lawyer to look over it afterwards, just make sure we don't get ourselves in trouble. But I, I, I think that outgrowing thing was one problem that we had, and we did outgrow at one point an account. And you're right, they didn't want to let us go as a client. We've been with them a long
No,
time. They done the right thing by us the majority of the time. But we got to a size there where we're like, well, hang on, it's just not working anymore. So,
they don't have the experience to help you get to the next stage. And then so the
correct.
advice is really not that useful. And on the business partner side, I'm actually just before this recording, I'm looking over my shareholder agreement that I'm drafting for my new company. And it's really important to find the right business partners because they are the key people in your company. And it's around incentives for them to perform and protections you have in place because things are rosy at the beginning. People and the environment changes. And if
Yeah.
you don't have these controls in place, then lots of things can happen. Terrible things can
Yeah.
happen. And so I agree with you on that one.
Yeah. And further to that too, it doesn't matter how close you are with them. It's always good to have a shareholder agreement in place.
Yes.
You
Yeah, not the most
know,
exciting document to go through, but definitely
no,
worth its
but
time.
it can. Yeah, exactly right. Can come in handy. That's for sure.
You talked about this business that you did not go as well as you expected, or you learned a
Yep.
lot from. How did you bounce back? What did you do when you were ready?
Look, I went back to working for someone for a little bit. Obviously, you got to pay the bills and keep money coming in. So I went back to working for someone for a little bit, and I found it really hard because I wasn't in control. I wasn't
Yeah.
the business owner, and I found it really hard. And I couldn't have the influence that I wanted to have and work the way I wanted to work. And not saying that they were wrong in the way they were doing things. I was in a position where I should have was in a back into a management position and stuff like that. And I just didn't have the controls over that. And then it becomes down to a personality thing. And I just remember, it was funny. I'd actually had a chat with my dad the night before, and he was a policeman for 42 years. And he'd recently retired. And I said, I remember just having a chat to him outside the back of his house. And I said, how did you know when it was time? When it was done? And
Yeah.
he goes, I just one morning I knew. I just knew it was it. And he didn't want to get dressed up into the uniform that morning. And he knew it was done. He just knew it. And
Yeah.
when it resigned that day, that was it to him as a police officer. And it was funny, the next morning, and I won't go through into detail what happened the next morning at this workplace, but I had an epiphany. There was an altercation in a meeting and I had an epiphany. I thought, you know what? I can't be here. It's not that I'm too good to be here. I just can't be here. Like I need to be out doing my own thing. And in that moment, I just said, here's the keys, here's the credit card, here's the phone. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm done. And I left, and I remember ringing Alex on the way out, and he was working for a mundane job as well. And I'm just like, hey, like we've got to get back on the horse. You know what I mean? We've got to get back out there and have another crack. That can't be it at the age of 36, right? I'm not even halfway through my life. That can't be it. We've got a lot to give. We're intelligent. We've got great networks, and in a way we love business. And then that was it. So it's just, we thought at that time, we started brainstorming what we could do. And this is when digital marketing was becoming a big thing. So we started off back in that space. And it's funny, I recently had a conversation with another friend of mine, associate, who's going through a bit of a tough patch in his business at the moment. And he might actually lose his business. Hope fingers crossed he doesn't, but he might. And I just said to him, I said, mate, you're young. Like you can have another start. The system is built. So as long as you're not doing anything criminally wrong, ripping people off, fraud, all that kind of stuff, and it organically goes down the way it goes down, like you can start again. Like there are parameters and frameworks for you to be able to start again. So I said, you wake up the next morning and you have two decisions to make. You can either, the first decision is like, all right, that's it. I had a go at business. It didn't work out. I'm just going to go and work for someone now. You're going to pay the bills and whatnot and that. And I've seen plenty of talent, right, where that's happened, where they're just working for someone. I think you are too good to be working for someone, or you're too good to be doing that, or whatever else. You've got too much talent, too much. Then the other decision you can make that next morning is, all right, cool. We got to pony up. Let's go again. Let's have another crack. Like this is the person that I'm built to be. I'm built to be a driven business entrepreneur. This is who I am, right? Let's go again, right?
Mhm.
That you've got to have that resilience built in and that be able to just stand back up and go again. And some people, it's really hard because it's, well, what will people think and look at us? And look what
Mhm.
happened to my last business. It wasn't great, but hang on, don't look down at me or have a go at me or mock me because my last business failed.
Mhm.
The fact that it failed is what's going to drive the success in my next business, right?
Mhm.
And that's a big thing. You've just got to get back up and go again and make sure that you take all those lessons that you learn and implement them as you move forward, right? That is just the key to it, right? Absolute key to it. Just having that drive and mentality to make that decision the next day is just what it needs to be. And that's where it came to be. And Alex and I started talking like, cool, well, let's start a digital marketing business. Alex
Mhm.
is a tech guy, right? So he's into that side of it, the the development and everything like that, building websites and software and all that kind of stuff. So we started off with that. I enjoy the business side of it, the commercial side of it. But then I also thought, right, I need to learn marketing. I need to learn that. So I went back to uni and I did
Mhm.
a double degree in business and marketing online and did that to cement and learn as we went along. And then we started an agency and we started building it. And that was called, at the time, that was called First Move Digital.
Mhm.
And we went out to our network. Our first two clients came from close friends and family friends.
Nice.
And that's it. And bang, we going. We did a good job for them and we leveraged off that and we built off that. And that was coming into, yeah, and then Agency Stack was born off the side of First Move at the time. First Move then went and acquired another couple of agencies as we grew through COVID. Obviously, COVID was a really good time for digital agencies and marketing agencies because everyone needed to be online and
Yeah.
really have their presence felt. That was a great time for us as a business and very successful. And then we grew off the back of that. We acquired some other agencies. We rebranded. Then we sold off an agency. I partnered up with another two guys in Sydney. And we currently have three agencies that we're running. I think we have a headcount at the moment this morning. I think I was just doing some look over some HR stuff. I think we have a global headcount of about 111 people within the ecosystem, which is fantastic. And we have an office in New York and we've got people in the UK and we've got people in the Middle East and we've got people in New Zealand and everywhere. And it's a 24-hour operation now. It goes around the clock and the amount of Slack channels that I have is insane. But,
Yeah.
and then to add on to all of that, the fact that we own two hospitality venues as well. We're involved in two other tech startups as major shareholders and on the boards. And then obviously all our not-for-profit work that we do. And I head up all of that stuff too. If I hadn't have woken up then, if I hadn't had that epiphany in that boardroom that morning where I thought, you know what, this is not for me, I'd still be doing that job and I'd still be copping a heap of crap from the senior management then. I'm not saying that they were bad people, they were nice people. And they gave me a job and gave me opportunity, but it just wasn't for me. And I wasn't built to be in that environment. And I knew that all the way along growing up that I was never going to be just a worker, like that I had to work to a point and then I could put myself into the room and put myself into those opportunities where I could create my own opportunities.
Mhm. For sure.
But if I hadn't had that epiphany in the morning in the boardroom, right, and that you talk about a moment in your career or timeline, that moment, I remember it clear as day. It was over 10 years ago now,
Mhm.
clear as day, that moment. And then that propelled us forward to where we are now. So, which is, I'm incredibly grateful for everything that we have at the moment. But even though I'm grateful, I work damn hard. Alex worked damn hard. Adam,
Mhm.
Ben, everyone in the team, Steph, though everyone's worked damn hard to be where we are, and it's an incredible ecosystem to be a part of, and I'm grateful for it. But we have worked hard for it, and it's all ours.
Yeah. I think for me, it was COVID when we had lockdowns. You were in Victoria also during that
Correct.
time.
Yeah.
And I realized without spending a lot of money, since we weren't allowed to go out and do anything, I still maintained a decent lifestyle. Like I still had good food delivered or ordered, and I still found ways to entertain myself. I bought some rings to hang over a tree for my 30 minutes that I could be outside. But I cut my expenditures by more than half because you couldn't travel. You really couldn't go to any entertainment or anything.
Correct.
And I realized that the cost of living wasn't as bad as I thought. And I had all this lifestyle inflation that I realized I could quit my job. and I planned it. So I had that moment when I realized, did the math and thought, I don't need to have a boss. And after my bonus gets paid out, I can quit my job and my shares vest. So I remember my moment doing the math and being like, I could try other things. I don't really necessarily need to stick to this job having a boss, and I could try different ventures. And if they don't work out, try another one.
As a fellow entrepreneur, the fact that you recognize that you had that moment and you took advantage of it, that's awesome. Like
Yeah.
I think we talk about wasted talent. There's a lot of people that probably would have that moment, but they wouldn't take the action on it.
Yes.
That first step is the hardest to take, and you'll probably recognize it and go, yeah, that was really hard. But once I took that step and then
You can't go back.
you're done now. Yeah. Yeah. So there's no turning back at that point. But you get to experience those highs and lows that you talk about. And it does become addictive and all those things. And as long as you leave your ego at the door, right, and have a very open mind and take on everything and absorb everything and learn from everything and just be a sponge about it all, you're going to have the most incredible experience. And I think to just go back and say again, like, again, awesome for making that first step, because that is the hardest step to take, the one that most people don't take.
Thank you. For those who don't know, you've started multiple businesses and you talked about scaling. What drives you to have so many businesses going in parallel? For me, I have focus in one or two things, and I spend my free time surfing and playing tennis. And for you, it sounds like you have a lot on your plate. What's your reason for continuing to expand and collecting businesses along the way? What's the end goal?
Look, the end goal is the end goal is lifestyle, right? The end goal is to have a lifestyle that is supported by the businesses that can just there's not a worry in the world, and I can be doing what I want outside of work at any point, right? And we're getting towards that point now, which is really cool. I think there's two reasons why we've got multiple businesses. Every business that we have a great partner in, and I want to work with great people. That's simple as that. So we've got a recruitment business that's going to be in the startup for next year, which the business partner that I'm working with in that, like, he's an awesome guy, and I wanted to work with him for a long time, and now the opportunity's there. So we're going to put together a business. I get to work with him. Adam and Ben, my two current business partners in different agencies here in Australia, awesome guys, great opportunity to work with them, huge amount of talent, both of them. And we've built really successful businesses based on that talent. In the marketing and advertising, well, in any business essentially, right? But especially in the marketing and advertising and development of software space, the space that we play in, right, across multiple agencies, right? We're selling talent. We're selling skill sets and talent. If I didn't have a great designer in Kieran, then I wouldn't really be able to sell great designs, would I? So if I didn't have a great ops manager like Steph and an account director, I wouldn't be able to sell, and she's a great marketer, I wouldn't be able to sell great marketing services either. It's all about putting the right people together and then being able to continue to build. Everyone's got to play their role in the different businesses. My role is across commerce, legal and finance and business development. But it's all about just finding those right people. And I think I'm never going to say no to a good opportunity of working with someone when there's a great business there. Every business we have complements the other businesses too. Admosis is set up as a real performance agency doing a lot of programmatic media. Agency Stack is obviously a big white label organization. 309 is a real strategy led business, and they can either help each other or we can bounce clients off each other and stuff like that. There's a lot of great synergies within the ecosystem there. I think at the end of the day, I think we've never really talked about it currently as we are in our main businesses. We've never really talked about an exit. That might be something that we talk about down the track, but I don't think any of us want to exit right at the moment. We're actually having too much fun.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've been able to build businesses that have allowed me to have a certain type of lifestyle. And I've just recently bought a country property, and I've been able to move my Harleys up here and have a great with my dog and whatnot, and have a great life. Everyone's laughing at me and calling it semi-retirement. But, about to start another business next year, but anyway, but it's allowed me to have a lifestyle. But it's also, and we'll probably touch on it in a little bit, but the not-for-profit stuff is a really big passion point for me, right? And our businesses allow us to do that as well, which is awesome. So we're making money, we're successful, we all have a good life. Alex has 3 children, Adam has 2, Ben has 2. We're providing for families. We're providing people to be able to have lifestyles. Sometimes it's not about the big exit. Big exit, always good. Don't get me wrong. And we've got different investment. Like I said before, we've got two tech investments that we're heavily involved with, that I'm hoping they do have two big exits, because that will further fund my lifestyle. But I think at the end of the day, I don't have any children, and I don't plan on having any children. So it's all about making sure that my time here on earth is spent the way I want to spend it. And also it's nice to be able to help people along the way too. So I think that's, so while there are opportunities to get involved in businesses, I love learning new things too. We bought two pubs at the end of last year. I've never been involved in hospitality in my life, but it's been a huge learning experience in another industry, made some great friends, doing some great stuff in those venues. I can add value. One thing that we do always have a mandate on is that we never passively invest in a business. If we are in a business, or if we found a business, we are to have involvement that adds value. So whether we play a role in that business on the board, or in the C-suite, or whatever it may be, we have to be actively involved in that business. We don't passively invest in anything or
Yeah,
involve ourselves in anything.
that makes a lot of sense. I think the startups I speak to, they're looking for strategic advisors, investors. They don't want passive investors either. They want
Correct.
someone who has experience and connections to help grow the company and be
Correct.
contributing towards the scale. And tell us a little bit about the mandate. So you said the philanthropy work, but also investing. What type of companies would you be open to contacting you to pitch and raise, since it's a different environment now. So Dan, be
It is. It is.
specific.
It is a very different environment. It is a very different environment. Look, we're looking for, well, what we look for is, there's a lot of, obviously there's a lot of tech. I think that we were heavily involved in the crypto space in the last bull run. I think that is something that I'm keen to just probably look at the moment, not actively get involved in the Web3 and whatever space
Mhm.
at the moment. I'm not saying it's a dead space whatsoever. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of cool stuff going on, but it's just not for us at the moment. I think tech, tech and revenue generating businesses are where we're playing. We've just, I can't talk too much about it because we only signed the documents yesterday, but really, really cool music project that has basically found a way to have zero latency across networks when playing music from different parts of the world,
Yeah.
which is massive. So we're getting involved with those guys, which is going to be cool. And the upsell on that business, my thoughts on that business as it is right now is worth over 100 million. Just the protocol and the patents at the moment would be worth over 100 million.
Mhm.
And to be involved in something like that from the ground up is really cool. But I think we're just looking at, like, tech is a big thing. Obviously, everyone wants to be involved in the next Atlassian or Canva or anything like that. But again, hospitality is a hard space. It'd
Mhm.
have to be a really cool and unique hospitality business for us to be involved in. But I think everything where we're playing at the moment with investments in sport tech,
Mhm.
one in hydration and sports, one in, at the moment, we're also involved in Minimus Technologies, which are based out of Sydney. Joe and the gang there doing really cool things with head-up displays and AR and stuff like that. He's got a really cool product, so it's really cool to be part of that. A new one that we're involved in yesterday, which I can't talk about just yet, but that's obviously zero latency deal, which is really cool. So these really cool, unique offerings into the tech space that we're involved in. But at the end of the day, right, if someone wants to approach me with a barbershop, not
You're
that I
open to.
need, yeah, I don't have any hair, but not that, but if they come along and say, hey, here's an idea for a barbershop that's really unique and it's scalable and this and that, then I'm going to sit there and listen, because hence why I'm involved in the pubs. Like, you don't say no to anything. There's a
Mhm.
really unique offering. That's why we're involved in the pubs. So that's what I mean. It's just like, no idea is a bad idea. So we're always open to chatting about anything, but probably the only thing that we're not looking at the moment is that in the Web3 space.
Okay. Is there a specific stage that you focus in of funding or amount range?
We love the early stage, the very
Okay.
early stage,
I'm early
pre-seed,
stage.
angel.
Oh, we should talk.
There we go.
I'm in payments though for B2B.
Look at some of the businesses that have spurned out of that finance sector. Unbelievably, PayPal will be one of them. Uh, Like that, I think that pre-seed, at real early stage, like we're in the ground floor with the one we signed yesterday.
Mhm.
Minimus, we're in the angel stage. You know, Luma, we're in the angel stage. Luma Hydration, being involved in these businesses at the early stage where we can have input and influence and add value is really important. And it's the same thing. I remember talking to one startup that we're involved with, and they were like, "Oh, we need to raise 500,000." I'm like, "Cool. What are you using that 500,000 for?" "Oh, we need to spend 250 of it building a website and marketing. This is cool." I say, "Cool. Well, we'll take that 250 out.
We'll do the site. Yeah.
We'll build all that for you."
Yeah.
And what he did, and that's sweat equity, which is a really cool space to be in.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of that stuff. That sweat
Mhm.
equity space. That's where we can add a lot of value because we've
For
got
sure.
this huge amount of resources that we can bring to the table very
At
quickly. And
cost.
networks,
Yeah.
and networks and everything like that. That's where we can add a lot of value. I think by the time you get to that sort of further down the track where you're doing your Series A and whatnot,
Mhm.
your branding's done, you're already there. I
Yeah.
don't think we can add a lot of value there. It's more they're just looking for money to then scale at that point.
Mhm.
So we can't add a lot of value there, and that's not where we want to be anyway. And of course, being involved from day one almost, there's so much more upside from an investment point of view as well.
Yeah. I think that's a very exciting space. That's why I'm in that space.
Yeah.
Starting a brand new company, something you mentioned around choosing the right people around you. It reminds me of one of my best friends. He always reminds me you're the average of the 5 people you spend your most time with.
Correct. Correct.
Or are the
Correct.
people you spend the most time with.
Who are the people I spend the most time with?
Yeah.
Well, I'd have to say my wife. Well, there's Alex, my business partner. So he and I spend an enormous amount of time together. There's obviously my wife. So if I don't mention her, she probably not like that, but she does have a big influence on me, and business wise too. We talk about a lot of stuff that happens within a professional careers and whatnot, and we can help each other out in that space, which is really cool. I think then my other business partner, Adam, I spend an enormous amount of time with him, and he's a great guy. We very like-minded, and we G each other up pretty easily up to the point we get excited about things. We'll ring each other and just really, whether it's a sale or a client or a win or whatever it is, we like to G each other up, and that's good to have those people like in your corner getting there for you. Ben King's another guy that I spend a lot of time with. He's our business partner in 309. He's a different cat. He and I, we talk a lot about sport. We probably talk a lot more on a personal level, sports and things like that. And he's a real strategy led guy. He's a real true marketer, really intelligent guy. It's good to have conversations like that and helping him build, like he's not a business guy, he's a marketer, but I've helped him build this business and it's doing really well. And he's had a lot of influence on me too, just in the way he goes about things and he's a bit more calmer, a bit more collected about everything. So he has that sort of maybe calming influence over myself. And I think it was at 4. And then there is one person, there's a young girl that's worked for us since day dot. Her name's Steph. I don't spend as much time with her now as I used to, but she still works with us, but she is running different department and reporting into a new general manager and whatnot. But she's fantastic too. Like she's seen all the highs, all the lows, being with us along the way. We sold a business and we made sure that she came with us out of that business. And she probably doesn't realize it, but she's a good influence on all of us as well too. She keeps us all in check and everything like that. And I always laugh about her because she's been around so long that she would be the last person to leave anyway because she knows all the passwords, everything. So
Yeah.
she has access to more things than I do in my own business, which is probably a bit of a worry, but she knows all the passwords. So she's the last person. She'll be the last one out the door and turn off the light. But again, it's fantastic to have someone like that. I've been able to mentor her since I think she came with us when she was 21.
Yeah.
So she's been with us seven, nearly 8 years now. So it's been fantastic to watch her grow and be a part of her career. And she's had a huge influence on the way we do things as well. And the clients love her and things like that. So yeah, she's probably, you got to put a number 5 in there. She's probably going to have to be number 5.
Perfect. We're coming up to our final questions. You see all these companies that are looking for investments. You're helping companies do your philanthropy work. You own companies. What opportunities do you see right now as new business ideas that people who are listening can get inspired or help solve that gap in market?
I think the more traditional professional service businesses, there's a really big opportunity in that space, but it has to be done extremely well.
Okay.
It has to be done extremely well. I think with what's happened with the big 4 sort of consulting accounting businesses, right, it's blown open like a spot in the market for the boutique sort of professional services. And whether that's a consultancy, that's a business advisory or whatnot. But I think there's a really big opening in that space, but it has to be done well and it has to be done transparently. That's the biggest problem I think some of the big guys have had. It hasn't been so transparent. I think
Mhm.
in that sector, I think there's an opportunity. I think the other space, a lot of these guys and some of the things that they're doing is that you just like, it's unbelievable. I think space and anything to do with space and commercializing space is going to be the next really big frontier, honestly. As soon as Elon can get himself to Mars and whatnot, I think that's just going to blow open that. He will be the first trillionaire on Earth, that's for sure, and probably the first trillionaire on Mars as well. But
Mhm.
I think there's a huge opportunity in that space too. But my traditional professional services, but done really well and transparently. I think there's a big opportunity there. And if you can, I know it's one person going in and being an accountant and you can only service so many clients, right? But the trick is, right, if you can to scale, to bring on more people to service your clients and they have the same
Mhm.
mentality and follow that transparency and whatever else, I think there's a big opportunity in that space. And that it will be cyclical. I know the government, whatnot, have pulled back on their tendering and the amount of work to go out to these sort of businesses. But I think that's cyclical. That will come back around. So all that work will come back into that space. But it'll be
Mhm.
those people that are leading it really well and
Mhm.
transparently are going to do that. And that's right. People want value for money nowadays. They
Great.
want to see transparency. That's this cost of living crisis might
Mhm.
go past us to
Mhm.
a certain extent, but I think the long lasting effects of it will be that people will want to see value for money spent.
And I agree. That's a whole different episode to talk about RBA's
Yeah.
decision.
Yeah.
But I did not prime your answer, but I completely agree on the professional services. I came from a big four firm and I know the amount of layers that are in place. And there's so much more value that I see, including now what I'm doing, helping businesses with their payment solutions, where consultants would have a whole team and you get charged a
Yes.
lot for a whole team to give you probably public publications on the industry rather than insights from having done the work. And so I
Yeah.
see these smaller boutique firms focusing on niches to help their customers quickly at a lower cost than going to a large firm and having an entire team of people where some of them are probably just managing teams of people doing the work. And
Correct. Just
I,
too
I
much
see that too.
wastage.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
difficult environment and the economy is changing. So we have to be very focused on the value we're getting on
Yeah.
things and cutting the things that don't add.
Correct.
Yeah.
And just as a side note too, if any of your listeners starting the next NVIDIA, please let me know.
I invested in NVIDIA for
I've been in for a long time too, and I've made some good returns on it. But I tell you what, I would have liked to be. I read a funny article the other day where it said so many of the NVIDIA employees are now millionaires.
Yeah, I saw the
It's like
percentage.
amazing.
Millionaire, multiple millionaire.
Well,
Our final thing is thank you so much for your time, Dan. And for people who want to know more about you, here's your chance to tell them how to connect with you. Where should listeners go to find you and connect?
LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I use it as a great networking tool. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so please, yeah, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Dan Copsey. I'm sure Rail shared
I'll
that
put it in the show notes. Yes.
in the show notes. Yeah. But yeah, feel free to reach out, shoot me a message, and we can organize time to catch up virtually or in person, wherever they may be. But yeah, LinkedIn is the place to be.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much for your time, Dan.
Ray, thank you so much for having me on.